carry on and plan the sequel. Because let's face it, baby, these days, you gotta have a sequel.
And welcome back to Micro Queers. It's your bi-weekly queer horror short roundup, and I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and we are going to be discussing a short film called Watch Over Me written and directed by Mish.
Yes, from 2010.
Yes, from 2010, which I guess with everything going on in the world right now, this is it's hitting a little close to home for people that are going to watch this right now, huh?
How do you mean?
I mean, just like with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, this is kind of like involved with, I guess it's just in Israel, I guess maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, we're talking about a conflict that's been ongoing since 1967, yeah. So it's...
I guess so.
Maybe before we get into it, if folks have not watched the short, here's a logline. On completing his training in a secret elite army unit, Etienne, who is played by Guy Kapolnik, there we go, is taken out by mates from the unit to celebrate. During a night of drinking in Tel Aviv, he learns things about the unit and about himself that shake his world. An encounter with Shahar, David Hoffman, who lives the way Etienne never dared, gives him a chance for a new beginning. But when he tries to go with the change, he discovers the ultimate price of his previous choices.
So yeah, and this is structured in a way that it's like the first third of it, it's almost like a bait and switch where you walk into this thinking it's like army training, right? Which I guess maybe it is. It's just kind of, but it's a vampire training, right? It's like, okay, like prove to yourself, prove to us that you can do this, that you can be a vampire, and then we'll let you stay that way. And of course, I don't know, what would you call this? The final test of sorts is go kill someone. In this case, it happens to be a gay man.
In some ways, this short is completely not complicated. Like, it's incredibly straightforward. It's two dudes from this unit select this guy who's in a room, and they're like, okay, we're going to go out for leave as given by the commander. Yeah. And then, you've got to do this test. And yet there is more to it, but there's also not. Like, I think what bothered me is there's an insinuation. I mean, there's the larger insinuation of why this armed force exists, which is against the backdrop of the Israeli-Palestine conflict and the years specific. I'm going to bring in something that maybe has something to do with it, maybe not. I don't know. But I also took this to be like, we go looking for people that can be killed and no one will miss them. So like when they find this queer guy, Shahar, he's very much like easy pickings for them, which to me is like not great. And, the ending of this film is quite a Debbie Downer. So
it is, which isn't a problem per se for me, but yeah, like there just wasn't much to it, right? It's okay, like it seemed like the point really of this was let's just kill this gay guy for me sometimes. And I don't know, like I maybe it's because I don't like I'm not immersed in this culture. Like I don't know enough about it to really know what it's trying to say. But what I got out of this was, okay, well, from point A to point B, we're going to kill this gay guy.
Yeah. And I mean, I think there's definitely a reading to be made that Etienne is a queer man who has repressed his sexuality, and that's why he's comfortable sort of being led into the ocean and making out with Shahar. But at the end of it, he ultimately rejects that in favor of, the confined, conscripted military service that he's been moved into.
Yeah. I mean, we know he doesn't want to kill him because whenever they assign him this man, he's kind of like, no, but he's Israeli, he's a Jew. Right. And they're like, doesn't matter, like, go kill him. And then when he's in the water, he's like, I have to go. I want to go. But of course, he ends up staying, and you think it's going to be, you don't really think it's going to be good, I guess. But then I didn't really view it though as him like deciding to kill him. I view it more as his like vampiric urges like kicking in, like he couldn't resist. But it's not really made clear enough. And then it just kind of ends, right? Like, I mean, he kills him. The other guys come in, they get rid of the body, and bam, roll credits.
Yeah. And I think part of this too is that we're watching this 11 years later. Like, let's not forget 2010 is a very different time period, even though it doesn't seem that far or that long ago either. But
Right.
part of this, I think, is you can read into it how there's issues with like the way sexuality is handled in armed forces or like combat situations where it's like
Right.
it's not a respectable or condoned option.
In terms of the Middle East, I mean, like, and I had to search this because I'm just not familiar, but like in the Middle East, like, Israel does have kind of they're really progressive when it comes to LGBTQ rights. And granted, that's not to say that it's like perfect. I mean, again, America, and is it perfect with LGBTQ rights? But compared to other areas in the Middle East, like Israel is like up there in terms of progressivism.
And especially Tel Aviv, right? Which is where the short is set. Like they specifically name drop the city. The filmmaker is actually a graduate of their filmmaking program at the university. So
I was going to say it starts with that. Like you see the logo of Tel Aviv University.
Mm-hmm. So it's tricky. I read a couple of comments like this is not a well seen short, so there's not a ton of interpretations or readings to draw from. But I did see on the Letterboxd that it has a fairly negative score, and I think part of that is that we are reading it through that contemporary lens, but also because sex is used as kind of like an introduction into violence, and that conflation of like, okay, we thought this was going to be a sex scene and then it kind of is, and then it becomes a sexual assault and then it becomes a murder is upsetting for the queer community.
It is upsetting, but I mean, I don't know. Like I'm hesitant to say it didn't bother me because I'm just like, well, that's kind of the plot. Like that is what we're doing here. But yeah. I mean, I don't know. Would it have been better for you if like it didn't start, if it was presented not in a like a courtship way to begin with? If it was just like, oh, we're just going to go get him. We're going to get him in the bar. That's it.
I think there's two things that I don't love about this particular short. So the first is the fact that we're introducing the concept of vampirism too early. And then we're treating it like a twist at the end. So like we see the guys moving quickly in the bar and we know that there's something supernatural. So it's like not a mystery.
Yeah, but I mean, really quick, do you know what that reminded me of? And given that this is 2010, you know what it feels like? It feels like True Blood.
True Blood. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The far-reaching impact of True Blood.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was one. I actually feel like the short would have been stronger if they hadn't have teased that. And then it was just like, you thought it was courtship, but oh no, it's actually vampirism. And then the other piece is there's that general so what-ness to the whole short. Like, as you said, it just ends. And I did see somebody say like, what is the point of this? Like, what is the message behind it? Because so often in shorts, it's like there's a twist or a message, or it's a short intended to be a proof of concept for a feature film. And I don't really get any of that here.
Yeah, and that's actually really interesting because, and you are right though. I do wish they would have saved the reveal, and you're gonna laugh at me for this, but there's literally a Goosebumps book and episode where it's like these two kids left home alone. They're attacked by a vampire. They find a vampire in the basement, and they like get stuck into this like underground world. Blah blah blah. Turns out it's their grandfather, and they're actually entering puberty and they're gonna become vampires too. Blah blah blah. So that's what this reminded me of. But yes, you're right, because from the bar and the get-go, we know that. I guess the twist is supposed to be like, oh, he does kill him. Like he does follow orders or whatever. Yeah. And you don't want him to. I felt that. I mean, I think that's what you're supposed to feel, right? You're supposed to be like, oh my God, this is kind of sexy. It's really hot. Like I want this guy. I want this to happen. And it doesn't. So they pull the rug out from under you. So on that note, I think it's successful in that regard.
Okay.
But yes, at the same time, it's like, so what?
Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of had like a feeling of ambivalence watching this. I don't think it's poorly made. If we look at it as a student film, it doesn't have a super high budget. I think it was like $4,000 to $6,000. So it's doing reasonably well with a very limited resources. But overall, I felt like it needed somebody to like amp it up a little bit.
There isn't really a lot of tension involved here. I do think that the one aspect that I really enjoyed though was the actual death scene. This in particular, the shot when it's like it's overhead and he's like pushing him in the water almost as he's sucking his blood. I thought that was actually shot really well. And I would have liked to have seen a little bit more creativity, like throughout. I mean, again, it's like a 13-minute short. Like there's not much here,
Right.
but at the same time, like, would I watch a feature-length version of this? I mean, so here's the thing. I would, if only because it would give this creator space to like flesh things out. Like I almost feel like they're just like, even though I do think this kind of this short doesn't justify a 13-minute runtime, I would like to see this premise taken and made like to justify like a feature-length runtime. Like I feel like there's stuff here you can do. Like, I mean, again, I don't know this lead character at all, so I would like to get more into his life.
Yeah. I think you would definitely have to do more of a kind of, I can't remember. Have you seen Bit, the transgender vampire film? Okay. So that film kind of feels like a bit of an elaboration of this, where it's like, it's a person who is different and falls in with a group of people who encourage them to like explore new sides of themselves. They just happen to be vampires.
Right.
And in this case, I think you could do it like let's see more basic training, like knowing so little about Israel and that conflict. Like, I do think you'd have to be careful because politically this could get very dicey.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think if you treated it almost like a war is hell, like this is what you have to do, like you have to lose your individuality to become a soldier, because of course in Israel conscription is compulsory at 18, and at the time of this film it would have been for 3 years. So you could do it as a like new adult coming of age, like I don't know who I am, and then I go in the military and I find myself.
Because have we ever had, I mean, again, like there may be one, but have we ever had like a vampire in the military movie? Like, the vampire genre for me is, I'm kind of like, okay, like, I mean, I know I haven't seen it all, but I feel like I've seen it all. Like, what can you do to like make this subgenre fresh? And I do feel like, I mean, I'm not really a war movie person, but like, yeah, do something with like vampires in war. Like, I think that's like an interesting approach. Execution TBD.
Yeah, it's more often like, oh, I've been a vampire for so long, I was in this war 50 years ago, and you get like a flashback with like a really bad wig. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, exactly. But of course, keep it queer. Like, I mean, like it's like queer first, then vampire, then war. Like, keep it queer. But again, with the way that this film goes, I mean, maybe this is the prologue to said film, and we then study our lead character's guilt and how he tries to find love again, and he can't get over this thing that he did. I mean, there's many avenues you could take here. I just let's see it.
Yeah. So I would definitely be intrigued to hear if listeners would like to hear, or rather would like to see a film such as that. But also I'd really love to hear from any Jewish listeners that we have who maybe have a bit more of a sense of a cultural context that we maybe are missing. If there's more to this, I mean, I think there's very clearly a reference to Arabs that we can read a little bit into, but Trace and I are not the people to do that because we do not understand enough of the conflict at hand. Yeah,
I don't feel educated enough on this conflict to like really speak to it. So I would like to actually hear from listeners or viewers what their input is on this as well. Yeah. But yeah, all right. Well, any more thoughts on Watch Over Me? Not my favorite of the microqueers that we've covered, but as always, I think it's interesting. And for me, this was almost like a queer horror short from 2010 that's international. Like, we don't stumble upon these every day. So I appreciated it for that, if nothing else. I agree. It's just being exposed to different cultures, different, like, I mean, different LGBTQ lifestyles in other cultures too. So I'm glad I get to see it, but I'm on your side with this. Yeah, not my favorite short that we've covered. Yeah. But all right, I guess on that note, we can cross out Watch Over Me. Yes, and cross out microqueers.
It was late in the afternoon when the professor and I took our way towards the east, whence I knew Jonathan was coming.
Jonathan Harker has asked me to note this, as he says he is hardly equal to the task, and he wants an exact record kept.
Dear Madam Mina, I have read your husband's so wonderful diary. Strange and terrible as it is true. I will pledge my life on it.
God preserve my sanity, for to this I am reduced. Safety and the assurance of safety are things of the past.
I am in hopes that I shall see more of you at Castle Dracula.
Listen to Regarding Dracula wherever you listen to podcasts, or find us online at bloody.fm.